Go. All right. So, welcome. I'm delighted to see so many of you here today. And this is my autumn webinar on the days of deepening. It's the first actually in a series of three. I decided I would do one webinar a month just on some of these the themes of the season. And then as we move into winter, what the various things in terms of how we can focus or how we can best optimize our energy in alignment with nature and the seasons that'll be adapting over time as we go into November and December. But today, basically we've just come out of the autumn equinox, and of course that's in the traditional Chinese medicine. That's actually the peak of autumn. It's not the start. A lot of people, at least here in the States, think of this as the beginning of fall, but it's not actually the beginning. It's the peak. And the basic theme that I would say about autumn, there's a lot of different things to say about it, particularly in conjunction with Chinese medicine or Taoist practice, is that this time is a time that's considered to be of metal, the element of metal. And metal is all about the essence, it's the essentials. I also think of it in terms of our core, in terms of our, literally the core and center of our body, but also the core of our skeleton. Because when I think I've said this in a video in the past, that I grew up in New York City and there's constant movement there, constant building. And so you're always looking at the skeletons of buildings, of new apartments and offices and so forth. So there's a lot of metal there. It really I always have that sense of like what the homes or what the environments are built out of has to do with this metal core. And so this season is really about coming back to that essence, to that sense of who you are from the time that you were just born into the time until you die. It has to do with something some quality or that some aspect of you that doesn't change. You could think of it as your soul or your spirit essence. I remember when I was a kid, I used to look in the mirror as a little kid, and I'd look into my eyes and I would just sort of see the spirit there. And it's almost like I still see the same thing when I look into my eyes in the mirror now, even though my face and my whole body has gone through many changes. There's still something that's that core essence. The other things about autumn is about pruning, or sort of letting go of excess. So we're going into the shorter days now, the longer expansive days of summer, and the end of summer have to come to a close. And so now it's a sense of sort of diving in and letting go of external stuff. It's about contraction, becoming more discerning, self-regulation, decreasing clutter, creating opening space, internal space, so that you can really breathe. So that's the second aspect that I want to mention about autumn, is that it is the time of the lungs in Chinese medicine. So this is a time where sometimes people end up with extra congestion or have a little bit of a weakness in the lungs or dampness in the lungs. Or sometimes extra dryness. It's a time to really balance what's in the lungs. And you can do that through diet and of course through some of the Qigong practices that I'm going to share with you in a little bit. The other thing I would say about the lungs is that, if nothing else, if you walk away from this webinar and every now and then over the next few days, just go, in fact, why don't you join me? Just sigh. Yeah, that helps let go of some of the excess that we might be holding tight inside of ourselves. So breathing, focusing on that breath. If you have a meditation practice, then of course that's always a good thing. But even if you don't, waiting online at the grocery store, if you can just focus for a little bit on the expansion and contraction of your lungs. So as you inhale, there's that expansion, exhale, there's that contraction, that becomes not just a way of really moving energy through the lungs, but it also is a way of reminding us of that metaphor that expansion and contraction is natural. Because sometimes at this time of year, it's a little difficult because it's a time of letting go. So in fact, the emotion that's associated with the lungs is grief. And one school of thought, one Taoist school of thought says at least that if you can move energy through your lungs, you transform grief into courage. And so I love to think about that, because that's really the courage to face whatever it is that we might be letting go of. If you received the email that I sent to you while confirming and giving you this link, then I asked you a couple of questions. And the first one was, what are you releasing right now? What does it feel like you're letting go of? And it could be anything from a bad habit, so do people have different responses to autumn? Some people feel like, oh no, summer's over. It's going to be dark. I don't have as much time in the day. And other people go, oh, this is a sharpened pencils time of year. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to get things done. It's sort of like the new school year type of a feeling. But wherever you fall on that spectrum, it's really the sense of really being able to listen for what is it being released and what is it that you need to do to practice courage to be able to face that release. So let's go ahead and if you would just put in the chat, if you would just start to tell us a little bit about what is it that you're releasing right now? What's going on for you right now that you could say is what is it that you want to use this season to let go of? Maybe it's letting go of eating certain types of foods, or maybe it's something that's like letting go of a relationship that feels toxic. Or I know for me, I'm just coming on the first anniversary of my mom's death. And for me, I think a lot of it is about letting go of what it meant for me, particularly over the last 3 years. I mean, I was really her caretaker for the last 26 years, but the last 3 years of her life were very difficult for her, and sort of letting go of that feeling of being on call. Because even though it's been a year and I've gone through the first holiday without, first birthdays without, all of that stuff, there's still some part of me that's kind of has a almost knee-jerk reaction when I hear the phone ring. I was, oh, is there something that I need to take care of for my mom? So letting go of that level of having to be on tap all the time. I can come back into more of my own center. I'm also letting go of a sense of the fatigue that came with that. So tell us, what are some of the things? I see a few of you have started to write letting go of money blocks and being an employee. Good, Lori, I love that. I think that's so important. Negative self-talk. And Kim, this is actually the perfect time to claim that, because the lungs and the fall have a lot to do with negativity and the importance of letting go of negativity. So you're right in alignment with what's happening in nature. Like if we think about trees that are letting their leaves go down, and to letting go kind of gently, as opposed to get rid of it. I'm sick of this thought, where that becomes negative in itself. And I'm not saying you're doing this, because I don't, of course, even know you, but I know for myself to really look at, how can we be in a very gentle place as those leaves drop away, or all those thoughts, those demons, that, you should this, you should be that. You're not enough this, all of those types of voices that I hear. This is actually the perfect season to claim that as an intention. Letting go of, I have to get my relationship to work in a certain way. Yes, letting go of that type of control. Whew, Liz, I so get that. To really be able to stay present with yourself and what it is that you can claim for yourself and what you can provide for yourself. And maybe letting go of self-doubt, lack of confidence that you're enough as you are. And absolutely, you are. There's no question about it. And again, what a great time of year to claim that, because what if those self-doubts, all those voices that say you're not enough, we're just falling off and just leaving the tree bare, and the tree itself has to do with your confidence, your courage, your ability to sustain and to be the trunk of your own strength. Letting go of what my good friends decide to do about their 40-year marriage. Oh yeah, that's another kind of letting go of control. I think that's, Trish, I get that. That makes a lot of sense, of just like allowing yourself to be a present witness. Letting go of self-criticism. Yes, Elizabeth, absolutely. And Joe, she writes letting go of anger with your parents again. Yeah. It's a lot to process, isn't it? And then, when you sort of when we come back to the core, when we really come back to the essence of who we are, then it's an ability to kind of go into that place where we might train our own reparenting skills, or our own ability to show up as adults for ourselves in a way that our parents were not able to, or didn't, or chose not to. Letting go of past choices. Hi, Monique. Yes, those past choices that don't serve you anymore. So it's all about, as you release, and the thing to know that as you release, and you can really think about dropping energy down into the earth, goes into the earth, compost, turns into good, rich, brown energy that you can draw up into yourself. Letting go of clutter and procrastination and wine. Yes, yes, beautiful. So I think people are thinking really clearly. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Please chat again if I did, but people are really, this is a wonderful thing to claim. So I think that what I'd like to do, actually, I'm going to do something different than I thought I was going to do, which I thought originally I was going to just kind of go through the material and then do Qigong, but I want to intersperse it with some Qigong. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Hopefully you can still hear me. And what I'm going to have you do is stand with your feet hip distance apart and take your left hand underneath your right. And as you inhale, draw energy up from the earth to feed you. And as you exhale, just imagine you're letting go of the self-doubt, the need to control, the old angers, the things that don't serve you, past choices, down into earth, just really become food for you, nourishment for you, lessons, information that no longer have that sting or cling of old habits. So inhaling, drawing up that nourishment from the earth. And then as you exhale, releasing and letting go. So think about what you said. And then of course, what you said was probably the tip of the pyramid or the tip of the iceberg. You can just let go of everything, whether you can name it or not name it, all the holding tight that we might have been doing to things that are basically dead or done or finished. Exhaling as you go down. Let's do this a couple more times. So inhaling, coming up. You can do this seated, lying down on your back or standing, by the way. And exhale down through your legs, feet, down into the earth. Let's do this 2 more times, breathing in as you come up. And breathing out to go down. And 1 more time, inhale up. And exhale down, hands on your lower belly. Okay, so that, let me know if you have any questions about that particular practice. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going a little bit more with the metaphors of autumn. So I said that this is a time on the emotional plane of allowing grief to go, grief to basically turn into courage, to start to practice some courage. And courage lives in the lungs. So just like sometimes when we're about to do something that feels intimidating or scary, you take a deep breath before you go for it. It's that same kind of concept, except in this case, what we're doing is allowing, again, expansion and contraction of the lungs, which allows your energy to expand and contract and allows you to enter into a reciprocal relationship with the world around you that also helps shore you up, build up courage. So in the same way that when we breathe in, we're breathing in oxygen from the plants or the trees around us. And then as we exhale, we're feeding the plants and trees around us. There's that reciprocity. We're part of this living, pulsing universe. And to be able to tap into that universal source allows us to let go of some of the ways in which some of you wrote about having to control things or having, holding on to old feelings, to be able to let that move forward. Vicky, you cannot see, let me see what you just said. You can just also unmute yourself and interrupt me if you want to. That way I don't have to fuss with tapping the screen so much. You can't see my hands down past my waist. Okay, I will back up a little further next time. Thanks, Margaret. Okay, but basically the hands, just so you know, just came down to basically the base of your belly, the lower dantian, the base of your jing. So when you come up and then you just go down as far as you want. There's nothing that's really specific about it. Qigong is very forgiving. You can do a lot of different things with it, but keep asking those questions. And again, feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. So the second question that I asked you in the email was, what is the quality that you feel like you have that feels constant for you, that you have sustained over time, that you feel like over the course of your life, when you were first a little kid, you knew something about yourself. Did you? I think that you did. So what is that quality that you feel like, you know, somebody, when I have a Way of Joy women's community, and we worked earlier today, and one of the things that I really noticed is that as people were naming this, because we worked some on this theme, actually we worked in a lot more depth on the theme of autumn and grounding, but the question was really, as I asked that question, people were naming their various qualities that were consistent, and every single one of them I think was recognizable to everybody who's in that community. Is like, yes, I really see you as that. So we often know ourselves quite well. So I can see some responses are starting to come in. Kindness, beautiful. Giving and helping. Roya, that is absolutely you to a core. I know that's so true to be you, and that sense of that giving and helping, and how to sustain that as a core value that you knew you came in with, and at the same time take care of yourself, which I know is the you know, every strength has its limitation. Curiosity, love that as a core essence. I think curiosity is a wonderful thing that children tend to have, and Elizabeth, I've seen you with that as well. Integrity, absolutely, the strength of your integrity. Trish, and kindness, yes, beautiful, Kim, and Marcia, compassion and curiosity, empathy, beautiful. So these things, oh, I love watching all these things come out. Empathy and intuition, compassion, strong-minded connection with nature. Um, this is the quality that will help strengthen. Again, it's part of the girders. Is that what it's called? You know, that the building is based on. It's part of your skeletal central nervous system that informs a lot of the choices that you make. So that as we're working with the release and coming back to center and coming back to the core, coming back to those core values, to watch this season on this month, for example, how this quality is playing itself out in your day-to-day life, because you'll probably see that this quality, even though it's with you all the time, is going to have like a little bit more of a light shined on it because of the time of year that we're in. This is the fall, is a time to really, it's not just about letting go, it's also reclaiming that central source. I should probably ask if there's any questions or thoughts that anybody has. Open it up a little bit. We are going to go into Qigong in just a minute, but if you have a question, please ask it, or if you have a thought about this, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, I will just go ahead and take us into the next Qigong. So here's what I'd like to suggest, is that you take your arms across your chest, and that you bring your fingers down so that your fingers, you can feel the collarbones, right? So you're just gonna let your hands run on your collarbones for a second. Then again, hands on the chest, and just take your fingertips, especially the tip of your middle finger, to the collarbone. Now in this particular system, the middle finger corresponds to the element of fire. And remember, the lungs are metal. So it's again about this fire of the middle finger is about softening the metal, softening any hardness we have around clinging. Right? Qigong is all about creating flow in our lives. It's all about how do we make things less effort, more sustaining for ourselves. So we're going to do a little bit of work for the lungs specifically. So those middle fingers, I have you on the collarbone. I'm going to ask you now to just go a little lower, just with your hands crossed this way. And if you push in, you'll see there's a hollow there that just seems to fit your tip of your middle finger. So we're going to press the middle fingers right below the collarbone. This is your lung 1 point in acupuncture. It's also known as Heaven's Gate. So it's really about opening up to your observer self, because something about coming back to the core at this time of year is really very awakening. It asks us to be present with the choices that we make, the things that we feel, what it is that's going on for us. So again, middle fingers are right below the collarbone, and we're going to just circle those fingers there. Now, don't get too worried or tight about, you know, is it the right place? If you're below the collarbone, you're probably right. With your hands crossed, you're probably right. It's fairly big. And these acupuncture points are all actually very forgiving. They're much broader, we can influence them from a much broader area than we even know. So you're just going to go around and around with your middle fingers. And we're just basically with again, the fire of the middle finger, the element of fire, softening up that metal, not to soften it in terms of your core structure being softened, but any holding or tightness of something that you need to release, but that for some reason you're holding on even in spite of your best intention. Okay, so let's go around in the other direction with your circles now. Just keep circling as I'm talking. And keep breathing, of course. So feel as you circle now the expansion of your lungs and the contraction. Make sure your jaw is relaxed and that the space between your eyebrows is relaxed. Then take your hands and you're going to place them over those hollows right below. So the what's called the Laogun points are basically the center. It's a little bit to the side, but basically the hollow in your palm over the hollow in your lungs. And as you breathe, stand tall. So I'm going to ask you to think about lengthening, not your chin, but lift the back of your neck so the crown of your head is lifted up. And as you do that, you might feel a little bit of release between your shoulder blades. Let your shoulder blades just go down and back. And the next thing I'd like you to do is just soften your knees very, very slightly. So I'm standing right now with my feet about hip distance apart and my feet are parallel. And I encourage you to do the same. Or if you're sitting, make sure that both feet are on the ground and you're lifting the crown of the head. Then I'm going to ask you, if you would, to put your attention on the ball of your big toe, the ball of your little toe, and your heel. So the 3 points on the bottoms of the feet. And we're going to just, again, soften the knees and let your tailbone and sits bones drop down towards the ground as though you had a big, heavy kangaroo's tail resting on the ground. Okay, and now we're going to take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, imagine that you're pulling out both the conscious and unconscious places that we might be holding on, stuck, because it's hard to let go. So all the things that feel stuck. And of course, there's things we want to keep that serve us. So that's not what I'm talking about. It's really about letting go of that which no longer serves you, that which is outdated, outmoded. Just pull that away. Now, just stay here for a second. I'll take a couple steps back so that you can hopefully see where my hands go. And you're going to inhale, hands come up over your head. And then as you exhale, bring your hands down by your sides. And you want to just imagine for a moment that you can feel the electromagnetic pulse of the earth coming up into your palms. So just take a moment to feel that. You're balanced between the 3 points on the bottom of the foot. The crown is lifted up, the back of the neck is long. And remember, not your chin, but the back of your neck. And then you can feel, just open up the awareness in your palms. And just notice what you notice here. Then bring your hands to your lower abdomen, which is called your lower dantian. It's your jing. It has to do with your physical stamina. And just breathe into your belly. All right, good. One more thing now. We're going to bring the hands forward, and you're going to bring all your fingertips to your thumb and relax your shoulder. So this is really a practice for courage. It's a medical qigong form for the lungs. You're going to inhale, your arms come out to the sides. And as you exhale, you're going to turn your palms out and make an S sound. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in. Now keep going. This time, as you do your S sound, I recommend that you think about internalizing the sound, like you're drinking it in. So it might not be quite as loud. Let's do this a few more times, breathing in and drinking in the S sound to feed and nourish your lungs. Breathe in. One more time, breathe in. And then just bring your hands back to your heaven's gates here, your 1 points. So those are practices that I would just encourage you to do every now and then. Great to do it in the morning when you wake up, especially this one with opening and closing, what we just did with open as you inhale, closing on the S sound, just to keep those lungs really letting energy continue to move through them. You know how sometimes when you feel stuck or when you feel like there's something that feels a little bit intimidating or something like that, we can kind of catch our breath and hold our breath. I know I find myself still, after all these years of working on breath work and energy work, I still hold my breath more often than I should. And I think many of us do. So if you find that that's an issue, I think that this lung practice will help you to really work with that expansion and contraction and being able to become more and more comfortable with what contraction, pulling in, coming back to core is. I personally find it a very inviting time of year. This time of year, I actually love it. I love coming back to this inner place where I'm connecting with the observer self. So I'm going to again ask you if you want to enter in the chat anything, questions that you have or anything that you notice, or if you prefer, you can just speak. Just unmute yourself, which you can do on the bottom of your screen, and then just go ahead and speak. So I'd love to hear what you noticed, if anything. We're coming almost to the end of our call. And while I'm waiting to see if anybody has any questions, what I'll also say is that one of the things that I really love to do, I've been doing Qigong for, oh gosh, it's almost 50 years. Next year it'll be 50 years. It's amazing. I still feel like such a beginner. But anyway, one of the things that I've really looked for is how to find practices that we can actually integrate into our daily lives. So I, as a Qigong practitioner, I can spend 1-2 hours a day doing my practices, and I really love to do that. But what I've noticed with people is that we really need to cultivate something that we can do. We tend to have very busy lives, so how can we incorporate it? That's why one of the things I've started to really, I think, specialize in, I don't know if that's the right word, but what I've really brought focus to are what are some things that we can do to pivot or change our energy really quickly. In fact, I created a whole Pivot to Positive program that it's based on the emotions. If you're feeling irritated or stuck or sad or angry or jealous or whatever, there's like over 60 what we so-called negative emotions or emotions that get us stuck. You touch it on the screen in this program, and it brings up 2 to 3 videos that you can do, like these, the ones that we've done today, that help change that. So I did that as actually a do-it-yourself program. Then I realized that some people were doing it themselves and really enjoying it, but there were a lot of people who bought it and then they didn't really use it. So I started a community, a Way of Joy Women's community, to be able to go into more depth. So I see I've got some comments here, so I'm going to open up and see what it is. I will send you a recording, maybe. Thank you for asking. Well, it makes sense, Margaret, that this, I mean, your husband's death isn't that long ago in the scheme of things, so it makes sense to me that this would bring up those feelings of grief. So I think that it's still appropriate, right? You're in a cycle, right? We cycle through again and again, and it's going to come up, especially in the fall when sadness is really being sort of generated. And of course, you tapped into it. Sometimes I joke about it. It's nothing like getting in touch with your body to realize how much pain you're in. But anyway, I hope that it's okay that you started to feel those tears, that as you do this movement, that it'll help again with that expansion and contraction to flow into the incredible love that you shared at the same time that you grieve his loss. Good. I'm so glad that you're feeling more centered. Is it Okay. Oh, Lori, it's Lori. Hi, Lori. So that's great. And the fact that we can do that super quickly, I think is really important to notice that it doesn't have to take hours and going to classes every week. I mean, those are all great. I really don't mean to put them down, especially as a teacher, but I just, to know that you can do things fairly quickly. And then of course, having the support of a community. If you have people that you can connect with around some of these practices, that's great. And that's again, part of why I created the Way of Joy community. I see that I had another person who had something to say. I think it was Elizabeth. Good. I'm glad that you're glad. I'm glad that you're glad. That's wonderful. I'll just say that I'm going to be doing this again, not these particular practices, but the next webinar is going to be next month. Let's see, I have it written down. It's October 16th. I think that's a Tuesday, and it's going to be a little bit earlier in the day. It'll be 11 o'clock. It's going to be a short webinar just to give you a few things that you can work with. If you're wanting to dive in and really start to work with some of these practices a little bit more and have the supportive community, I'm going to send an email out to those of you who've been on the webinar, have the potential you can join, check out the Way of Joy membership and see if that's a fit for you, as a way to kind of get these practices and be able to have every day something that you can do that can bring you back to center, that can bring you back to this place. And I can't encourage it enough, particularly at this time of year. Oh, wonderful. Have a great afternoon, Monique. I know that everybody around you will benefit from your beautiful energy. So that's great. Okay, Celeste, the 15th or the 16th. I think it's October 16th. It's a Tuesday. So I'll double check it. I'll see that for people who are interested in the community, I'm going to give you a special offer, so you'll see all of that too. Anyway, the final thing that I want to say is remember to sigh every now and then. You can do that waiting in the grocery line, or waiting if you're a driver, waiting in a car or on the bus. You can do it when you're just walking to the bus stop. You can, that's something that's so obvious, right? But the more you can just have a sense of releasing. The other thing is that the lungs are connected to the large intestine in Chinese medicine, so make sure that you eat warming foods. This is a time to warm up. Slow cooked foods are really good. Pears are really good for the lungs. I'll send you a little bit of information about what to eat too, just as a little extra bonus. So I hope that you join me again in October. Till next time, be well and let the chi flow. Bye-bye.